Now, in the interim between that 48-hour period, what merits DCP&P removing the children from a house? I'm assuming it's not done in every investigation because that would just be emotionally damaging to not only the children but parents as well. So, I guess it's at what point is it a removal from the parents in order to protect the children? Obviously, it's not gonna be something as minimal as someone witnessed an argument outside or yelling at the child. I'm sure it has to marry up to the level of potential harm to the child, and I mean physical harm, not necessarily just some redness or someone overhearing an argument or anything like that. I'm assuming they don't just take the children willy-nilly on just an allegation. I'm sure that there's something more at play in that situation.
Now, it is a bit subjective, as are a lot of things with the law and state and DCPNP, but the definition is, is this child at imminent risk of harm? If the worker believes that by having this child remain in your home, this child is in imminent risk of being harmed, they will then initiate a removal. So it really is case by case. You mentioned an example of like physical abuse and hitting. Well, if the worker sees bruises that are visible, well, that may deem to be an imminent risk of harm, a factor of that. Now, the division must also consider other options besides removal as well. For example, if there's an issue of there being abuse or neglect in the home, maybe only one parent in the home is a target, there's the idea of trying to put into place a protection plan to allow for the kids to remain in the home while having them still be protected. Now, that may involve the parent being supervised by the other parent or by somebody else moving into the home to supervise that parent or both parents, or the parent agreeing to certain services like evaluations or other treatment. So there are different ways to say, look, although you're observing imminent risk of harm, at least the workers believe so, there are still ways to address that and protect the child from that harm without removal having to happen.
So in other words, removal is truly a last ditch effort from
So
DCP&P to protect the children.
fortunately, they're not as common as parents, guardians, clients may think, which is obviously very fortunate, but they can and do happen. But the idea is the state should look at other options first prior to initiating that removal. But the issue with that is that because parents aren't informed or guardians aren't informed about the process, the workers oftentimes will tell a parent from the get go, if you don't do X, Y, and Z or comply with us, we're going to take your child away. Non-compliance, saying I won't sign a release or I won't do a urine screening right now or I won't do a psychological evaluation today or tomorrow isn't grounds for a removal, but they might tell you that.
Okay, so they can effectively lie to try to induce performance to what they want you to perform.
It's almost, I tell clients, it's like an empty threat, or I guess you might even say a negotiation tactic. You say I can do something when really they can't or shouldn't, but without having a lawyer, overseeing the case from their side or our side, from the parents' point of view, these workers tend to believe they have more power than perhaps they actually do. And now this worker is supposed to call their supervisor and say, hey, what should we do? What should happen here? But even with that being said, you have two workers who aren't perhaps legal minds or have the statute involved at the tip of their tongue, and they say, "Oh, sure, take the child away," when really it shouldn't even be happening.
Sure. Now, I know that there's that negative connotation that people have with DCP&P and Child Protective Services that their only goal is to take children away. And what you're saying is that's really only a last ditch choice that they make, but exercise everything else first or try to exercise alternatives to taking the children away. So is that correct in saying?
That's correct. But without understanding how the process works, DCPMP can take advantage of the lack of insights and information to force parents and guardians and other individuals to comply with things they don't really actually have to do. And so it's important to realize that I always tell individuals you want to comply to a degree. It's a give and take, right? Do enough to get DCPMP out of your life, without doing everything.